So you've received a foreclosure notice on your house in Concord, North Carolina, or Harrisburg, Midland, Kannapolis, Mount Pleasant, anywhere in Cabarrus County. And in fact, you can stretch this out to all of North Carolina because the foreclosure process is governed in large part by state law. So let me give you some inside baseball as to what you should know if your house is being foreclosed on. First of all, you may still be able to stay in the house and do a plan with your bank. In fact, that's what your bank prefers. As a local realtor who does help foreclosure properties and their home sellers and the banks, I will tell you that every single time I get an email from an asset manager, their number one goal is, can we work this out with the homeowner? Now, what does that look like? It could mean they reduce your mortgage debt. It could mean they reduce your interest rate. It could mean they give you a little extra time to make your payments. What I can tell you is that it costs the bank money to foreclose. They have to go through a long time, a lot of attorneys, and a lot of paperwork. They would rather work it out with you. The asterisk to add here, you can't hide from them. So when the bank is calling on the phone, please don't screen them, talk to them. I promise you, they don't want to take the house if there's a way to work it out. Sometimes they'll have me reach out on their behalf, and so a bank may reach out to a local realtor and say, hey, go talk to Bob over at the house, see what they're willing to do. So when I come knock on your door, please don't turn the pit bulls and the rots on me, because I'm not the bad guy. I am there on behalf of the bank to help figure out a plan. Job number one is, can you stay in the house? And a lot of us would much rather the community stabilize if there's a way to do it. Now, let's just say that you are not interested in talking to the bank. The second thing you want to do is go ahead and talk to your local realtor, because I'd be just feeling sick if you let the equity get away that may be in your house. So for example, let's say you bought a house for $150 and today it's worth $250. And your mortgage was the whole $150, now you've got some late fees, and so it's $170. There's still equity that you can capture there. Now, if the bank has already started the foreclosure proceedings, it's not even too late then. If you talk to a realtor who knows foreclosures and we go ahead and get our information together, get our paperwork in place, the bank may give us an extension so that we have time to get it sold. Again, it saves the bank money. It captures the equity for you and allows you to move on without having your credit marred by a foreclosure, because it will take years for your credit to recover from a foreclosure incident. Now, speaking of that process here in North Carolina, if you're thinking about foreclosure as something you saw on Judge Judy or Judge Joe Brown, that is not what it looks like in North Carolina. We have a very cut and dried process, and in fact, most foreclosures are handled by the clerk of court. Here's the 4 things they need to foreclose. They have to have a valid debt. That would be the mortgage that you took out when you bought the house. It could also be a home equity line that you took out if you paid off the first one and didn't make the payments on the new one. Then we've got to have default. That would be you not making the payments. And just know the banks don't tend to come after you after one missed payment, although that hammers your credit score. And by the way, there's more videos about credit score implications as well. The default's usually going to occur after a couple of missed payments or a pattern of missed payments. The third thing is a right to foreclose. When you bought your house, you signed a whole bunch of documents, and one of those was the deed of trust. In that deed of trust, there was a paragraph or 3 about the bank's right to foreclose. As we like to say at closing, if you pay, you stay. If you don't, you won't. And that's what that phrasing says in that document. So go back and look at it. It's there. That's step number 3. And then number 4 is they have to deliver proper notice. And this usually comes in the form of the sheriff knocking on your door. It could be a certified letter. There's lots of ways they try to reach out to folks. If the clerk of court sees all 4 of those things, they're not likely to do anything except proceed along to foreclosure. However, if you, in the process of getting that notice and before the date occurs, if you've hired a realtor to sell it and you signed your listing paperwork and we are looking for a buyer in the marketplace, they may grant an extension just off the bat because they know that you are trying to handle the process. That's what our job is to help you figure out options. All right, let's just say that didn't work and you're done with the house and you'd like to move along and not fool with it. Many banks will offer you what's called cash for keys. This would be a check that is negotiated with you in exchange for you leaving the house and leaving it in what we call broom clean condition. That is not that you're expected to get on your hands and knees and scrub it. It's basically the description of the way you would leave an apartment. Get all your stuff out and make sure that it's not gone all to a mess, that you didn't turn off the utilities in the middle of winter and the pipes burst, or the middle of summer and it turned into a fungal growth fest inside, but that you got all your belongings out and did the best you could. The way the banks will do this is that check is available to you after the house is broom clean, which can be tricky because most folks, when they receive cash for keys, are using that to make a security deposit on the next rental or to rent the U-Haul truck so they can get their belongings out. But the way that the timeline works with the bank, we negotiate the amount, then you leave, then you get the check. Also, when you receive that check, there will be some documents. Make sure you read what you're signing and you know exactly what you're doing, or have a legal counsel have a look at it as well, because you want to make sure you know what you are giving up in the way of rights. Often when you receive that cash for keys, you are walking away from any remaining equity in the house. So you've got to pay attention. And again, if you back up just a minute in this video, that's why it's a good idea to talk to a realtor and see if we can help you get that house sold before you go down this process. Now, speaking of getting a house sold, one of the reasons you may want to walk away from it is it's not very clean and it's kind of a mess and life just got in the way. Many realtors do have investors that can step in and buy it, but we have to know where we are in the process. So again, just talk to us. I promise you, you may think that realtors are super fancy like you see on HGTV. Many of us are your neighbors, and we would love to help you figure out a dignified way to manage the house that has become a headache. And you won't see us talk about this on social media. It's not the prettiest side of real estate, and we don't want to actually expose anybody else's life struggles to the world. So make sure that when you call a realtor to ask questions about your house in foreclosure, that they have some experience in the process, and you can get a good feel right away if they're going to treat you with some honor and dignity. I will just point out to you as well, in our communities, foreclosures happen. They happen no matter what's happening in the economy. Divorces can affect them, job changes can affect them. Don't get too wrapped up in thinking that you did something really terrible if you got foreclosed on. It could be that life just got in the way, and that's what this video is for, to help you figure out some of your options to help make it a little bit better than it has to be. Now, if you just completely walk away, you ignore cash for keys, don't return phone calls, you may see an option to declare bankruptcy. That's often what some folks will do. Again, you want legal counsel for that, because during that bankruptcy period, there is an expectation that you'll figure out what to do with the mortgage debt. The bankruptcy does not wipe out the mortgage. So ask good questions and know that if you are just delaying the inevitable, you may as well get all the information up front before it goes down that pathway. I'd love to help in any way that I can. That's what we're here for, to help you get life moved on with. So call anytime and just make good choices. And by the way, if you can get some of that equity, don't let it all go back to the bank. They don't want it either.